He wanted a raise. He says, you know, Mike, I got to talk to you. No problem. We sit down. And the first thing he says to me, he says, I would like a raise. I said, okay, why? He said, because you need me. This place doesn't run without me. I'm the guy. You see how I work? You need me here. This place would not succeed without me. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? That might have been true 30 seconds ago. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't need you anymore. You're fired. I can honestly say throughout my lifetime, I've been involved in countless negotiations. You know, back in the day when I was part of the Colombo family, I negotiated with the likes of John Gotti. These are high-level negotiations. Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino family at one time. Fat Tony Salerno, boss of the Genovese family. We had high-level negotiations, and you know what? At times, I was negotiating for somebody's life. At other times, I was negotiating for a major business transaction. I negotiated with union heads during that time. When I got out of the life, you know, too, I was negotiating with the likes of General Motors, with Mazda Motors of America, with General Electric Corporation. I had automobile dealerships, and I had to negotiate deals as a result of my involvement in those companies. And they're all pretty high level. But I can tell you this, the most successful negotiation I had was with the United States Justice Department, actually the Organized Crime Strike Force. That was negotiation that lasted over 3 months, several meetings over 3 months, because I wouldn't give in. We had to give and take, give and take. But I can tell you this, did I come out on top? Yes. I ended up doing 8 years in prison. I ended up paying a $15 million fine, but I ended up gaining my freedom and gaining my life. And that was 25 years ago. And I can tell you that was the highest level negotiation I ever had. It was one which, I'll be honest with you, I walked into the room a little bit scared because I knew what could happen to me if I lost. And it could have been a lot worse than the way I came out of this. And you know, there's things that you learn on the street that you're never gonna learn in the Wharton School of Business. And fortunately for me, I became very successful and very adroit at learning the techniques of negotiation. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I can guarantee you that. Now, you may not realize this, but negotiation is a major part of your daily life. We're always negotiating with something and somebody. It happens all the time, you know, whether you're in business or whether you're in your daily life. You know, if you're a husband and a father, you're negotiating with your wife, your children, your family, your friends, your neighbors. It may not be something big, may not be a big deal, but you're negotiating something, you know, and you don't realize that. If you're in business, you're going to be negotiating quite a bit, you know, if you have a new client or whatever. There's always something that you're going to be negotiating throughout your life. And to learn the skills and the strategies that I learned throughout my life, I can tell you, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I'm going to show you how to apply the strategy, how to continue the mindset, apply the strategy in any negotiating that you have, whether it be business, whether it be in your personal life, whatever the situation might be, you're going to learn how to apply it. My friends, did you know that there are scammers out there that can literally steal your home right out from under you? That's right. And they don't have to enter through your front door or your window. They can steal your house right from under you. The FBI calls it house stealing, and it's a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. Here's how it works. Pretty smart. Criminals forge your signature on one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee, and then they file that document with your local recorder's office. And just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name, and you don't even know it. Then they can take out loans using your equity in that home as collateral, or even sell the property behind your back. And you won't even know it's happening, not until you start getting collection or foreclosure notices, and the bank or the loan company is going to hold you responsible. So let me ask you this, when was the last time you checked your home title? If you're like me, the answer is never. And that's exactly what scammers are counting on. You don't check your title. There's no reason to normally. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and your equity safe. Here's what you get. You get immediate 24-hour, 7 days a week monitoring of your property. You get urgent alerts if there are any changes in your title. And if fraud should happen to happen, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost to you. And here's the best part. I've now teamed up with Home Title Lock, And because of that, I can give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're already a victim, God forbid, and access to your personal title expert. That's a $250 value just for signing up. So right now, go to HomeTitleLock.com, use my promo code MF250, or click on the link in the description below. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code M250 to get the protection and peace of mind that you deserve. People, this is a serious situation. These scammers are good, and they can steal your house. Trust me, it's being done all the time. You need Home Title Lock service. That's an offer. I really mean this. Nobody should refuse. We talked about having the right mindset whenever you enter into a negotiation. This is very important. It's critically important because you're going to negotiate in life for different reasons, different circumstances. There are times when you're going to be forced into a negotiation you may not want. God forbid there's a divorce situation, break up with your partners, something with the government, you got to sit down and resolve something, an IRS matter, all sorts of things where you're not wanting to have this negotiation, but basically you're forced into it. There are other times when you want to go in and negotiate because you want to gain an advantage, whether it be in business, something in your personal life. So there's different circumstances under which that you're going to enter into a negotiation. The mindset you have going in is very important. I'll give you a couple of examples. There was a negotiation that I had at one time when I was back in the life, high level. I was basically negotiating for somebody's life. I realized that, and I knew going in, I had to come out on top. It was a friend of mine, somebody I was very close to. He made a serious mistake. In that life, things can get a little bit out of hand, they can get a little bit extreme. And I knew going in that I couldn't settle for anything other than a win in that negotiation. That was my mindset. There was another time when I had a negotiation with John Gotti. The two of us owned a flea market together. I realized at some point in time that I couldn't get along with him in that market. So I knew going in, my mindset was either he had to buy me out or I had to buy him out. And during that negotiation, I had developed a strategy to get him to buy me out, and I was successful in that end. He did that. There are other times when I entered willingly into a negotiation. Give you an example. When I was out of that life and then in my business life, I, as a young man, had taken over a Mazda dealership. And it was at a time when you basically couldn't give a new Mazda away. They were only the Wankel engines. They were blowing up quite consistently. Very hard sell to sell that car. So I had to figure out another way to develop income and to bring money in, obviously. And I had to do that with the help of Mazda Motors of America. So I had a negotiation with them. I put something on the table. They went for it. And as a result, I was able to sustain the dealership until they came out with a new car and cars started selling again. Another time, I took over a Chevrolet agency that was in default. I had to negotiate with General Motors Corporation to keep the dealership alive and give me time to bring it back to where it was operating successfully. So 2 instances where I was basically forced into a negotiation. I had the mindset going in. I knew what I had to accomplish. 2 situations where I wanted to gain an advantage. Again, a mindset going in. I called for the negotiation to help it work out properly. So there's a lot of different circumstances that you may go through. Sometimes they're going to be unpleasant. Sometimes they're going to be to your advantage. And it's very important that going in, you have a certain mindset going in and saying, this is what I'm going to accomplish. Sometimes you have to compromise. Sometimes you got to out and out win. And sometimes you got to be willing to get off the table and just walk away. In developing a strategy, one of the main important tactics, I would say, is preparation. Preparation. I can't say it enough. Knowing who you're going to be dealing with, knowing who's on the other side of the table, doing your research, finding out as much about the individual, about the company, whoever it is that you're dealing with, you got to do your homework. Know the guy that's sitting on the other side of the table. It's extremely important. There's information out there. If you're in a company, you want a raise, you know a little bit about the company, you know about the personality of the boss, the guy that you're going to sit down with. You got to know how to approach him. If you go in and ask for a $25 raise and the company can't afford it, why would you bother? You're not going to get anywhere. You got to be realistic. You got to get as much information as you possibly can about the person that you're dealing with, the company that you're dealing with, whatever resources you can use. Maybe you find stuff on the internet. Maybe you talk to somebody that's dealt with them before. Maybe you talk to another employee, another person, a lawyer, anybody that you got to talk to try to gain information so that when you walk into that room, you know the personality of who you're dealing with. I already explained to you the Gotti personality, different people that I had to deal with. You got to know who you're dealing with, so you must prepare. I want to give you an example. I had a big club out in Long Island, very successful, big club. The manager, the guy that ran it for me, he was a good guy, worked pretty hard, did a good job. He wanted a raise. He says, you know, Mike, I got to talk to you. No problem. We sit down, and the first thing he says to me, he says, I would like a raise. I said, okay, why? He said, because you need me. This place doesn't run without me. I'm the guy. You see how I work? You need me here. This place would not succeed without me. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? That might have been true 30 seconds ago. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't need you anymore. You're fired. And he looked at me and said, what? I said, you're fired. Don't tell me that I need you so desperately. I said, this whole place can burn up and fall apart. I still don't need you. I said, I'll go on in my life, so don't ever approach me like that. That was the wrong approach. Now, he just, kind of fell down into his seat. He didn't know what to do at that point. Now, I rehired him. But I told him, when you go in the room, it's kind of an education. Know who you're dealing with. You know me. This place can burn, fall apart. You can go on, move to California if you had to. I don't need you, so don't tell me I need you. Now, if you want to explain your value to me and tell me how hard you're working and what the extra things that you are doing and what you want to do to make me even more money, to make the place more successful, well, state your business, tell me your value, and then I'll listen. If you want to raise, you got to establish your value with me. That's how I look at it. He didn't know my personality. He didn't know what I would do. You need to do that. You need to know that when you walk into the room. I'll give you another example. I had a big deal going on in the contracting business. I needed a loan from the bank. So I went to a certain bank, I'm not going to name it, out in New York. And before I went in to sit with the bank manager, I did some research on the bank. It's one of the smaller banks. It wasn't Citibank or Bank of America or Wells Fargo. It was a smaller bank. So I did a little research, and I found out that bank really needed deposits. They actually had a sales contest going, some kind of contest going. Whoever brought the most deposits in, was going to win something in the bank. So what do? I had a very good relationship with one of the unions that had a big pension fund. So I walked into the bank and I said, look, I need a loan. And I said, but before we go into that, I said, I want to ask you something. I have a union that's looking for a relationship with a bank. They want a good relationship. They have a pretty big pension fund that they want to put on deposit. Are you interested? I said, yeah. He said, what's the union? And I told him. He said, yeah, I'm really interested. I said, well, I can deliver that for you, but right now let's talk about the loan that I need. I got the loan, obviously. I even sweetened the pot a little bit by giving him a financial guarantee bond, meaning that it was an insurance company that said, if you don't pay the loan back, I'll pay the loan back. So, I gave him every advantage. He had no reason whatsoever not to give me that loan. Now, you can't always do that, but I'm trying to make a point. Anytime that you know the need, or you know the personality, or you know the wants, the desires, the status of the company you're dealing with, it gives you a big advantage when you walk into the room. You're not going to ask for something that you know you can't get. You're not going to challenge somebody where you know you're going to lose. You can't do that. Get as much information as you possibly can. Last example, big contracting job out in Queens, New York. It was actually the biggest apartment house to co-op conversion in the country, almost 4,000 units. Well, one of the managers there that was managing some of the construction was a guy I knew. He called me up. The union was coming in and wanted to unionize the place. They said, Michael, do you think you can help? I said, well, I don't know. First of all, let me find out who owns this job, who's the developer. So I do my research. I find out it's a guy by the name of Jerry Gutterman. I ask about him. Does he play by the book? What other properties has he developed? Has the union been there? Has it not been there? What's the deal? Well, I find out that he's a guy that's amenable to saving a few bucks so that I can use the union to save him some money by keeping them out, and in the same time, I can make some money for myself. He was amenable to that. Whereas some contractors, some developers were not. They say, no, we play by the book. We'll use union people. We don't want to bother with you. So again, I was able to gain an advantage negotiating a very solid deal with him. I made money on every apartment that was converted into a co-op because I was able to understand who I was dealing with, gain an advantage, come out with a good deal. He saved money by not having the union in. I made money by keeping the union out. So it was a good thing. But how do I know that? Because I was able to get information on the person that I was dealing with. So preparation is extremely important. Know who your opponent is, if you want to call him an opponent, but know who's sitting at the other side of the desk, the other side of the table. Know who you're talking to. Gain an advantage just by the knowledge you have in knowing who you're dealing with. It's very important. There are times when you don't have enough time to do that. And when you don't have enough time to do that, well, you go in and you present yourself as best you can. But anytime you can prepare and know the personality, know the status of the company you're dealing with, you're going to gain a big advantage.
Hey, my friends, a lot of you already know that just a few short months ago, I started my private community. We call it the Franzese family. And I got to be honest, I'm really blessed to see that over 500 people have already become a part of it. You know what they're doing? They're connecting with one another, they're learning, and they're growing together basically every single day. And I'm going to be honest again, it's getting pretty hard for me and my team to give quality time to everyone. So here's what we're going to do. Starting March, we'll be making the community for invite only. Now, you still have time to sign up this month and lock in the price of just $10 a month, 2 cups of coffee. But after that, honestly, it's going to be only for select people who we feel can really benefit from what we have to offer and really who others in the family can benefit from. That's what family is all about. So, don't wait. Take part in growing yourself in the Franzese family, lock in the price right now, and don't miss both the benefits and the success that come from a real community environment. Go to michaelfranzese.com/family or click the link in the description below to sign up. And I hope to see you all there because you're going to see a lot of me. I do a lot in that community. It's going to be a legacy piece for me. I just love helping people. So that's an offer you shouldn't refuse, people. See you in there.
Another important part of your strategy as you're preparing for your presentation is to decide whether you need any resources or tools to bring into the presentation that could help corroborate what it is you're trying to sell. Let's say you have a business deal, you're sitting down with a bank, or you're sitting down with some major investors and you want to sell the deal with them. Well, sometimes, it's important to bring in resources that can back up and strengthen your position. What are those resources? Well, this could be a big deal, complicated deal. Maybe you need an expert. Maybe it's something that you're not too versed in, that you can bring in an expert to try to, bolster your position. Maybe you need a lawyer. Maybe there's some legal element of the deal that you're presenting and you want a lawyer to come in to express or explain the legality of it, make sure everything's on the up and up, what the advantages are from a legal basis. Very important. Maybe you need an accountant. Maybe you're not that great at expressing the economics of a deal. You bring in an accountant who did their spreadsheets, their homeworks, they did research on it, and they can best explain the economics of the deal you're trying to present. Sometimes you need certain software, always a great resource. Maybe it's a PowerPoint. I don't know if they use PowerPoints as much right now. I hear that they do. Maybe sometimes, the visual element of what it is you're trying to accomplish, the point you're trying to make to your investors could be very powerful if you have a PowerPoint presentation, a visual presentation. You can do that in videos, in webinars. There's certain elements that sometimes, what they say, a picture, is worth more than 1,000 words. So sometimes you bring in elements like that. Written materials, maybe they could be videos, maybe they could be photographs, maybe it could be a pamphlet, anything that you can put in front of the investor or the funder that can show, to help support your position. And then maybe just from you, it's preparing a nice detailed letter in advance that really expresses everything. Sometimes you may not be the right person to really, talk through a deal. Sometimes you're better at writing it down and expressing it. You leave it with that person. So after the meeting, they have something to look at again. You impress them, you brought all your tools, all your weapons into the meeting. Now you give them something to walk away with. They can read it, they can think about it again, they can think about what happened in the room, and that could be very helpful to you as they make this decision. So Resources, tools, very, very important. Think of all of them. Think if you need them. Now, let me give you the flip side of that. Donald Trump. You go into a meeting with a PowerPoint with Donald Trump, you probably got 2 minutes of his attention with that. He don't want to hear it. You know, there are some people you don't want to hear. They want you to be ready to present your case verbally. That's it. He's not going to look at resources, at letters, at photographs, at webinars, or anything like that. So you got to make that decision. But resources and tools at some point can be very helpful. At other times, you leave them out. Again, it's knowing the personality of who you're dealing with at that point in time. But take advantage of resources, any tools that you can use that can bolster your position and help you, give you an advantage in making your presentation could be very important. All right, it's time to now develop your strategy. What are you going to do to get your optimum result in this negotiation? Well, you got to develop a strategy. First element of strategy, preparation. First element of preparation, identifying your optimum result. What is it that you want when you walk into the room? Optimum result, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to try to achieve, try to gain. You're going to prepare for that. But you have to have a fallback position. You may not get everything that you want. So what are you going to settle for? What do you want? What's your optimum goal? And what are you going to settle for? You got to prepare for both. Let me give you an example. I had a tremendously high-level, high-stakes negotiation in my life. Tremendous. It meant my freedom. I'll give you a little background. 1984-85, you probably know a little bit about this. The government in New York was going crazy. The racketeering laws, locking up a lot of people. Everybody was in trouble during that time. This is high stakes. I was indicted by Rudy Giuliani. I went to trial several months. I was a lead defendant. After a several-month trial, I was acquitted in a very serious racketeering case. 3 months later, 4 months later, I get indicted again on another racketeering case in another district, the Eastern District of New York, Brooklyn, actually. Well, what happens? They get me with no bail. So now I'm locked up. And I know the government wants a conviction on me. They have tried several times. I went to trial 5 times. I beat every case. So now my thoughts were, you know what? I'm going to try to negotiate a settlement with the government. I'm going to try to take a deal. A plea, not cooperation, but a plea for the best possible deal that I can make for myself so that I can, you know, see the light at some point in time, because they were putting guys away for years. I mean, 50 years, 100 years. These racketeering laws were devastating. So when I sat down with my lawyer, I said, look, I want to try to negotiate a plea agreement. I'll do some time. I'll give the government back some money. We got to make the best possible deal we can make. So the lawyer says to me, Mike, what do you want? I said, well, let's pay them as much money as they want. I don't want to do any jail time. He said, that's impossible. That's not going to happen. Well, that's the optimum result that I want. So that's what I want you to shoot for. Go for it. Who knows? Let's see what they say. Okay, but I realized, being realistic, not going to happen. They're going to want some jail time on me. So in my mind, I'm willing to settle for 10 years. Because 10 years under the old law, which I was indicted under, we still had a chance of parole. Not like the new law where you got to do 85% of your time. I was under the old law. This was 1984 when this happened. I said, I'll do 10 years. Maybe I'll get out in 5. I still got a life. It's a little, I can do that. I'll give him back some money. So my optimum position, no time, give him a big, you know, check. Second position, I'll do 10 years. Maybe I'll get out in 5. I'll still give him some money, maybe less. So that was the negotiation. It lasted 3 months. They kept rejecting everything that we wanted. They made me go through hell in between. They kept me locked up. They wouldn't give me bail. They moved me around. They put me in solitary. But this was the fight for my life, because they originally wanted to give me 25 years. I wasn't willing to take that. So it was a long, long battle. I finally won out. In a way, I guess. The government got a little pound of flesh, but I really got what I wanted in my second position, my fallback position. I ended up with a 10-year prison sentence, a $14.7 million fine and restitution. At the end of the day, that was 25 years ago. I got my life, I got my freedom, I got my wife, my children, I got a business, I got a career. So at the end of the day, the government got a little bit of what they wanted, but I got my fallback position, plan B. It worked out for me. So sometimes you can't get your optimum result, even though you prepare for that. I went in, both barrels loaded. This is what I wanted. I went in for my optimum position, but I settled for my fallback position, my plan B. And in the end, it worked out. So here's what you need to do. You got to say, okay, hopefully it's not going to be a negotiation like I had where you're negotiating for your freedom. Maybe it's a contract negotiation. Maybe you're negotiating for a raise, you know. Maybe it's a house that you want to buy. Maybe it's a car, whatever it might be. Know what your optimum want is and know what you're going to settle for. And if you can't get either, you got to be prepared to walk away and then maybe come back another time. Like I said, this took me 3 months to negotiate. They kept saying no. We want 25 years. We want a $100 million fine. We kept going back. In the meantime, I'm sitting in jail. I wasn't very comfortable, but we just kept going until we got what we wanted. Sometimes you got to be able to back off. But remember, plan A, optimal want and desire, but always have your fallback position. That's the first start of your strategy, knowing and identifying what you want. There's another section or part of preparation that I think might be kind of personal to me. I call it a tactical retreat. Now, what do I mean by that? There are times you're in the room, you're negotiating, whether it be for a contract, for a raise, for something that you want to purchase, and it's just not working out. It's just not going to happen at this point in time. Maybe it can happen. Maybe the company you're negotiating with, you want to raise, they just can't do it at that point in time. Maybe the house that you want to buy, the owner is not moving off of it, but you want that house. You don't want to blow it, okay? You just can't get the price that you want. You know, maybe it's a contract that you're negotiating that for whatever reason you're in the room, you can't get what you want. You can't get your optimum result. You can't get your fallback position. So what do? Do you want to just make an enemy? You just want to cut it off? No. What you do is you say to yourself, you know what? Maybe this is not the right time. Timing is everything in life, and sometimes it's just not the right time. So what do? You say, tactical retreat. We'll come back another day. Let me rethink this. Let's see how the market changes. Let's see how things change that maybe give me an advantage the next time around. You know, I'll give you a story. It's kind of extreme, but I'll give you a story. My dad gets out of prison. He was a captain in the family, cop regime. Like me, I was a capo at the same time. Well, my dad gets out of prison, Carmine Persico, I think you know who he was. He was my former boss. He brings my father in and he breaks him. What do I mean? He takes his rank away. He's no longer a cop regime. He makes him just a soldier. What? My father did all of this time, you know, all of the prestige he had in his life. This is how you repay him. I was very upset. Dad, this is an insult. How can they do this to you? We have to do something about it. I got a big crew. The family's not going to stand for this. What are we going to do about it? He said to me, son, relax. The excuse or the reason that Junior Persico used, he said, you know what, Sonny, you keep getting violated on your parole. I don't want you to have to be around anybody, so I'm going to break you. You're not going to be a captain anymore. I'm doing this for you. That's the reason he gave him. But you know what? We knew differently. I was coming up. I had a big crew. We had a lot of money, gas business. We had a lot of people that followed us. Maybe we were getting, you know, in his mind, a little bit too powerful. Maybe we were going to make a move. We weren't. Didn't have a thought, but I was angry. You know, I was a little bit hot-headed at that time. Son, this is what we call a tactical retreat, because remember, in this life, it's like a wheel. You know, things keep turning. You know, Persico's on top now. He may not be on top later on. It's not the right time to make our move. We know we have a plan. Let's just back off and see what happens. Well, things changed. I walked away from that life, but my dad ended up being the underboss. At some point in time, he was reappointed to a higher position than what he had before. So the tactical retreat worked out for him in that way with respect to his position. Moral of the story here, what I'm trying to say, sometimes timing just isn't right. We don't want to upset people. We don't want to go to war. We don't want to get everybody mad at us. We don't want the whole family to go into chaos. So my dad, wiser than me, tactical retreat, just back off. Things will change at some point in time. Well, that's what happens sometimes in a negotiation. Market changes. You know, real estate, it could be a seller's market rather, and the prices could be high. Maybe things change. Maybe 6 months, a year from now, you want that house. The market changes. You know, prices go down. It becomes a buyer's market. You go back, you make a better deal. You know, same thing with a car. You want a certain car, can't buy it today. The guy wants, things change at the car lot. You know, you can go back and buy that car or get another car at a better price. Contracts, sometimes it's not the right time to negotiate. Things that are happening in that company, it's not to your advantage at this point. tactical retreat, back off. You still want the deal, you just can't have it now. You got to be willing to wait at times. So remember that. Might be my expression, something that I've used, taught to me by my dad, tactical retreat. That's your third position, but it's a very important one. Be prepared to do that. You don't want to blow the relationship. You want to be able to come back at another time and hopefully at that point get what you want.